When we talk about a restless mind, the terminology we use implies a lack of control. Overthinking, overwhelmed. When the Guru talks about these things, the language is much simpler. They call it your attachments. The reason you have a restless mind is you are attached to the outcome. The reason you feel overwhelmed is you feel so many things are on your plate, so many responsibilities, so many attachments. And sometimes life feels like it has too many things. What I've had to learn is my well-being sometimes has to come first. Because if I'm not well, then I'm not going to be able to help anybody else. And that is the opposite of how we've been taught. We've been taught, don't think about yourself. It's good to serve others. It's good to make sure that you're doing things for the community, for your parents, for your children, for your loved ones. And it can very quickly feel overwhelming. Sometimes a simple thing that I've done is I just go for a walk and I then ask myself, what are you doing? Why are you getting so worked up? Don't you know that none of that stuff on the outside is really what the purpose of your life is? And sometimes even that can get too overwhelming. What is the purpose of my life? How do I prioritize? Should I do this or should I do that? I have so many things to do. Then if it feels like too big a question, ask yourself, what is the purpose of my day? Why did I wake up today? What is my day about? Sometimes when we wake up, it feels like we've got so many priorities, so many different things to do that we don't know where to start. And all of these frustrations, these emotions, this negativity, this feeling overwhelmed, really should be used as an indicator in your life. The Guru uses a very interesting analogy. He says suffering in your life is a medicine. How can that be? How can suffering, feeling overwhelmed, feeling stressed, feeling like you have a restless mind, how can it be a medicine? It's a medicine because when you have suffering, that is the time when you question your life. That's the time when you think, am I doing the right things? And within that struggle, you start to realize, actually, I've focused on too many of the wrong things. Those of you who are familiar with some of the evening verses that we read within the Sikh tradition, Guru is saying, Dukh daru, sukh rog paya. All the pleasures that you're running after are ultimately the disease of your life. Look at the way we talk about our life. These are my children, these are my life, these are my responsibilities. And the Guru is saying, these are your diseases. It's very hard to think about these things as a disease in our life. You say, what do you mean? How can it be a disease? I'm looking after all of these things. I think I'm doing a good thing. And the Guru is saying, keep doing the good thing, but do it with a higher level of awareness. Now, the only way that you can get to that is sometimes you have to let some things go. Sometimes you are literally just carrying too many things, too many responsibilities. And you'll only know that when it feels overwhelming, when it feels like I've got too many responsibilities, my mind is all over the place. That means that's an indicator for your life. You're carrying too much, you're juggling too many different things. So that's the point where you should think, not what do I do about all these things that I'm juggling, is how do I feel? Why do I feel the way I feel? It's very easy for us to always look on the outside and think, how do I solve this problem? And when we see the problem on the outside, then we ask questions like, what meditation should I do? I've got too many problems on the outside, so maybe I have to do something more on the outside. The beautiful thing about the wisdom, the techniques of Guru Nanak is he's not interested in what you do on the outside. You can do as many meditations as you want and go to as many different ashrams and go to retreats and try this yoga and that mantra and all those things. He's saying, no, you don't have the understanding, the wisdom. The Guru has basically said that wisdom is the thing that is missing in your life. Meditation without wisdom is a waste of time. And I'm a big fan of meditation. I encourage you to meditate. I encourage you to spend time looking at your own mind. The problem we have with the world today is these techniques are being taught without the underlying wisdom. You can go to a yoga class without really knowing that yoga means to unite with the divine. How is you putting your legs in the air and your arms in the air going to help you unite? Meditation without wisdom is just relaxation. You might as well go and lie down on the beach. That's all you're doing. But if you have a teacher that's guiding you that what is the mind? What are you meditating? What is the inner nature? And again, I want to stress, I'm not saying don't do these things. Do whatever yoga you want, whatever spiritual practice you want, whatever meditations you want. But Shabad is the Guru. Shabad is the Savior. The actual teachings, the underlying teachings that were always historically taught with these practices. You could never, in the history of yoga, go to a yoga teacher and say, tell me how to do the movements, but don't tell me what the underlying wisdom is. Now you can't go to a yoga teacher and ask what the underlying wisdom is because they don't know. But they say, well, I know the movements, I know this, I know that, I know this mantra, this chant, this sound. Wisdom and practice go hand in hand. So when you feel overwhelmed, use it. Use the tool of wisdom to say, what's actually going on? Self-reflection. Why am I feeling like this? Am I just juggling too many things in my life? Maybe I need to let some things go. And then when you do pick up a practice, notice I'm not telling you what practice to do. Whatever practice is working for you. If yoga is working for you, do that. If meditation is working for you, do that. If going for a walk in nature is working for you, do that. But the underlying wisdom is what is the boat that's going to save you from drowning. We are drowning in our minds. Shabad is the boat that carries you across. Wisdom, the underlying teachings that you are an ego that is lost in this world of Maya. And you must free yourself from that, not by just changing the Maya. Notice what the question is. I feel overwhelmed with my life. What meditation or yoga should I do? What spiritual practice should I do? How do I swap one bit of Maya for another bit of Maya? And the Guru is saying, this is all Maya. This is all the material world. It's just you getting drowned in a different thing. Then you'll be stressed about, my yoga teacher told me that I have to do this 7 times a day and I have to fast this and not eat this for 40 days. You'll get stressed about that because it's just a new thing that you've taken on in your life. Now you've got even more things to stress you out. Wisdom, teachings, Shabad. Go back to Guru Granth Sahib Ji, and I'm not just saying that from a religious perspective. The Gurus saw the problems with the spiritual practices at the time and said there's something missing. The Gurus didn't tell you to stop doing these things. They're saying know the underlying teachings. They taught the teachings in the common people's language. The teachings of the Gurus really are for everyone of every background, of every religion, of every practice. You don't have to convert to read this wisdom, to apply this wisdom in your life. Stay with whatever your practice, your tradition, your culture is, but there's an underlying wisdom, and that's called Gurbani.
A question was asked, can you explain a little bit about Anhad Shabad? How do we connect with this divine current?
So the question is, can we explain the Anhad Shabad? We can break these words down. Anhad. Had is something that has a limit. And the wisdom for thousands of years has said that there is a Shabad, a sound, a current, a vibration that seems to have no limits. How do we know? Because for thousands of years, spiritual masters, yogis, rishis, they went so deep within their own being that they said, behind everything else, when I dropped everything, all that was left was something. And I couldn't quite put my finger on it. There's just a presence. It's just there. And every tradition has got a different name for it. The oldest Indian traditions, they said it is Om. It is just the vibration of the universe. It's just there. What's interesting is that the Guru is not interested in trying to make you hear some sounds. Because there are spiritual teachers and practices that says that the purpose of your spiritual practice is to reach such a state where you can hear the sound. The Gurus are saying the sound is there all around you. It's happening all the time. It is wisdom that is needed to simply realize that underneath everything else is the vibration, is the Shabad. So the Guru does something interesting. The Guru says that the base layer of all of creation seems to be a vibration, an Onkar, a sound, a Shabad, a vibration. But it's so deep that you're not necessarily going to be able to easily catch it. So if the way the universe is working seems to be like it's singing its own song, the way you're going to connect with it is through singing songs. So the Guru said, if the whole universe is a song, then how are you going to connect with that infinite silent song that's going all along? You start to sing. Make your life a song. Make every moment of your life a song. If you think about the song of your own life, it's probably not going to sound very good. If your life had to be converted to a song, it would probably be all over the place. Say, I don't want to hear that song. That's the song that is keeping you from hearing the divine song. How can you make each moment a joy? The universe is singing. The universe has this beautiful sound that's going on all the time. The universe is in joy, in bliss. But you're not. So you have to train your mind through the use of song, through the use of mantra, through the use of Shabad, through the use of affirmations, words that are saying, thank you. Life is beautiful. Life is good. Force your mind to say that despite what is going on the outside. And that becomes your practice. Whatever life is doing, life is good. A mantra that I like, all is good because all is God. Can I recognize the hand of God in this moment too? In the ups and the downs. Once that becomes the song of your mind, you will start to hear that this song is going on all the time. So the technique is called using jap. Keep reciting, keep training your mind to label the world in a different way than you've been labeling it so far. Keep reciting. And if you think that's difficult, what I say is the Guru has given you the most simple technique because your mind is saying a mantra all the time. From the moment you wake up to the moment you sleep, and even in your dreams, your mind is saying something. So the Guru is not telling you to go and do some practice, go live in an ashram, go somewhere else, do this, do that. They're saying, no, just go here. Your mind is already singing a song. Pay attention to what song it's singing. Change the words in your mind. If you change your mind, you will change your life. life is a beautiful song. You're just too distracted to notice. So once you start changing that practice within your own mind, you will be able to connect and realize, oh, I don't have to interact with life like it's a struggle all the time. Life is doing what it's going to do. Does my mind need to do the same thing? Does my mind need to label this moment as chaos? Or can it label it as something beautiful? The Guru is very direct. It's all a game of your mind. Do you want to see this moment as pain or pleasure? Whatever is happening on the outside, your mind is responding to it, reacting to it, labeling it in every moment. So the Guru says, okay, if that's the game of your mind, you're always labeling it, give me the labels that you've been using. Let's not use those. Here, try my labels. Try the words that I've been using to look at life. And once you start to use those, you're constantly training your mind. This is beautiful. This is good. This is good. It's far more than just positive thinking. Positive thinking is something good is going to happen. The wisdom techniques are saying something good is always happening. In the ups and the downs, Tera pana meetha lage. Har naam padarat nanak mange. That this moment tastes sweet to me, regardless of how the moment changes. They were in that Anhat Shabad, they were in that song, because they had aligned their mind song with the song of life. At the moment, we have a mismatch, there's a disalignment, because our mind is saying, I don't want life to turn out this way. So your mind has your own idea of how life should turn out. And the Gurus are saying, you don't get to decide what's going on out there. Stuff is going on all the time. But you can fix how you interpret it within your mind. And once you change that, you will start to hear and view life as a beautiful sound. And that is the Anhat Shabad, the sound that seems to be playing since the beginning of time and will continue to play long after your and my story ends. This song keeps going and going. Do you want to align with it, or do you want to fight with it? That is up to you.
One of my favorite shabads, Gat jayere ghar lago rang. Where is there to go? What is there to do when I have found that love within myself?
Mera chit na chale man payo pang. My mind doesn't go somewhere else now. It is dissolved.
And Guruji says, Bahar toondan te choot pare, gur kar hi mahe dikhaya tha. It's like I was shown that there's nowhere else to go. The Guru showed me how to find this within myself.
So, Virji, when you spoke just now and you speak about the underlying essence of the universe, of this unconditionality, it always feels so exhilarating and so liberating. However, there are some shabads that when I have, read them or tried to understand them, I feel that they're very, maybe fear-based, fear-inducing. And that's always been a contrast to understanding the unconditionality of the universe, or the love that we know is contained within the Gurbani. And I've never really understood why there are those harsh shabads, or why is it so fear-based. And if you could just share a little bit about that, that would be wonderful.
Thank you. So the question is that there are so many verses in Gurbani which seem to be inspiring, uplifting, based on getting you to feel a sense of love, and yet there are some shabads which seem to go the opposite way and seem to almost instill fear in you. There is real wisdom in the Guru using these two techniques. And the Guru realizes that there is only two reasons why you do anything in life. One is love, the other is fear. Those are the only motivators in your life. Nothing you have ever done has been motivated by anything else. You get your children ready for school, pack their lunch because you love them. You shout at them to quickly get out because you fear that they're going to get late. You wake up and you open the window and you see the sunny day, and that is because you have love. You love nature. But then you look outside and check whether it's raining because you're afraid that the clothes hanging outside will get wet. Fear and love are your only two motivators in life. And if you go to the teacher in the school and they try to explain you with love and show you all of the answers and how it all works, and you keep going back and you're saying, but I still don't understand, then the teacher has to try something else. The teacher has to try a different method. It is not that the answer has changed, but if you don't understand it one way, you might understand it a different way. So the Guru uses love as a way to show you that deep within you there is peace, there is stillness. And you say, oh, I like the sound of that. I want that. That feels very nice. So you're motivated by love. But then you forget. And sometimes the Guru says, you know your time is running out, right? And you say, oh yeah, that's a different motivator. I say, oh, I love my life, but I'm afraid that it's not going to last forever. The Guru is saying, I don't think your priorities are in the right place. Your time is running out. Why are you asleep? Life is coming to an end very quickly. And then you say, oh, Guruji, this doesn't feel like a good lesson. Can you teach me the other ones again? He said, I tried that, but you weren't listening. Maybe now you listen. Love and fear are the only two sides of the coin. They're the two parts of your personality. So the Guru will use whatever it takes to make us understand.
Have you ever wished that you could truly feel the meaning of Gurbani Kirtan in your own language? For so many people, the beauty of the Guru's wisdom feels distant, lost behind words they don't understand. Guru's voice has been created to help you deeply connect, even without knowing Punjabi or Gurmukhi. For the first time ever, sacred Shabads from Guru Granth Sahib Ji have been translated into modern English worship songs and set to powerful, soul-stirring music. Streaming now on Spotify, YouTube, and all major music platforms. Listen today and experience Gurbani Kirtan like never before. Search online for Guru's voice.
A lot of times I'll go somewhere, do something, attend something with an expectation rather than an experience. How would you say we can go to the Gurdwara or listen to Bani or be a part of all this without the expectation and only for the experience?
Can you elaborate on what the expectations are?
Well, it could be as simple as, oh, langar vich aa nahi saga. The simplest. The expectation that there should be this in langar, oh, na, rando. Or the certain style of kirtan. Or, you know, oh, this person's speaking, nah, I'm not going to go. How do we get away from those expectations and just focus on the experience?
You know, that's so simple a question, but it's so true for how we act. That we go only to satisfy our expectations. We go to the temples, we go listen to the verses, we only want to hear certain things or in a certain way or experience it. Sometimes we just go because our friends are there, and then we feel disappointed because our friends didn't turn up. And I think there are some times where we needn't be so hard on ourselves. The thing is, we're going. They're attending. Everything you do is with some expectation. You know, you go to school as a child, and you go with some expectations. Yeah? You go to work, there are some expectations. Yeah? You come home, there are some expectations. The house is going to look a certain way, there's going to be food on the table, all these sorts of things. So our entire life is just expectations. But I know what you're saying, that underneath it all, do we just go from one thing to another, just satisfying our expectations? Or can we find a state of peace where it isn't about that, it's about something much deeper? You will only know that if you have the blessing to experience something deeper within you. For me, you go to the Gurdwara sometimes, there's sometimes some kirtan and you're just not connecting with it. You know, whereas another kirtani will come and then you're just, I'm there, I'm in the front row, I want to sit there. We have to be careful that are we going for the real reasons? Are we going to connect? Sometimes we're going just to satisfy our senses. And that's a very hard lesson to learn. And whether you like kirtan in a particular style, or whether you're liking one particular dish in your langar, whatever it is, you are simply just working at very superficial layers. And the Guru teaches you that these 5 senses that we have, we might not be using them in the right way. And there's a really interesting sort of science that the Guru presents. The Guru says that your eyes, your ears, your nose, your tongue, your touch, all of these things, we are using them in a way as though, how do we use them to see and smell and touch and hear good things in the world? I want to hear kirtan that I like, I want to taste foods that I like, I want to meet the people that I like. And the Guru is saying that you've used these senses to place your attention out into the world. And the Guru says that that's not what these were created for. They were created to bring your attention in. So when you're listening to music, you've put your attention out. There's a sound that I like. When you're seeing something that you enjoy, you're putting your attention out. There's a thing that I like. When you're tasting certain foods, there's a food that I like. The Guru has said that you don't use these to put your attention outwards. Use these to put your attention inwards. If I am seeing something, what is it inside that is seeing? If I am hearing a sound, good or bad, what is this thing inside me that is hearing? You've turned the direction of the door. If I am tasting something, what is this inside that is tasting? What is here? Bring your attention inwards. Use the same doors. The Guru calls these doors. He says, "Nau dware pargat kiye daswaं gupt rakhaya." You have 9 of these different things that can take your attention outwards. But by taking your attention outwards, your inner 10th gate of awakening is closed. But when you switch the direction, you go in. That's why you go to the Gurdwara. You have to go listen to these teachings. And while that might sound complicated, it's a very simple switch. Rather than even right now, rather than putting your attention outwards, just take a moment as you're doing what you're doing. They're going, what is this? What is this miracle that's going on in here? Not what are the miracles out there that I haven't seen and touched and tasted and heard yet. Because that's what we do. We like to put our attention outwards. And in doing that, we place our happiness outwards. We say, if something good happens out there, then I'll be happy. And the Guru has said that nothing can happen out there that will make you happy. It's all going on in here. If you're trying to be happy, where is happiness happening? Happiness isn't happening out there. Happiness is happening in here. So go there. Go where happiness is happening. And you realize, I can be in the most fun, interesting place in the world, but in here I can be miserable. Anyone ever experienced that? Sometimes you have your expectations. This day is going to be great. I'm booking a holiday. I'm going to go experience this and that. And when you're there, you're actually having a terrible time. Why? All the stuff that you expected is happening on the outside. But happiness is happening here. So the Guru is saying, oh, you thought that was the solution? The solution is always within you. So turn the attention and say, what's going on, mind? Why, even though you have all these nice things, are you not happy inside? What's going on here? And that's some of the deeper experience that starts to happen when you lose your faith in the outside world to solve your emotions. You no longer think that this, and this is the reason why I'm going to be happy. You start to take control. No, I'm going to control this happiness. I'm in charge of in here. I can't control what happens there. But in here, this is my world now. Whereas all of our lives, we've been told to control the outside worlds so that your inside world can be happy. And the Guru is saying, we've tried to play that game. That's a never-ending game. You're never going to tick all the boxes on the outside. But there's very few on the inside. Try and bring your attention inwards.
Ram ras piare, jehe ras bisar gaye ras aur.
Gurbani is using a beautiful shabad, Ram ras piare. When you taste the juice of God, it makes you forget all the other juices of life, all the other flavors of life when you have tasted that. But that's not going to happen somewhere else. You're not going to find oneness out there in sacred places. You're going to connect when you see all places as sacred. When you can see everything as God, then it doesn't matter whether the flavor is sweet or sour, because it's all God's flavors.
As you mentioned, Veerji, that our negative emotions is due to outer attachments or Maya. So my question is, how to practice continuous detachment to cross the layers within our being by inculcating constant wisdom, peace, and unconditional divine love? And also, at times it happens that there is feeling of doubts when you are analyzing your inner self. And we get confused between what is our intuition and the divine inner voice and what is the voice of the doubts which is speaking. So on that also, how to clarify that confusion.
So can you remind me the last part of the first question?
Last part of the first question. How to practice continuous detachment to cross the layers within us to reach the depths of our being by inculcating constant wisdom, peace, and unconditional divine love. Like how to practice it constantly and that it becomes the way of our being and our lifestyle the way you have done it for yourself.
Thank you. You know you've answered your own question, right? How to
I
practice
was writing,
it,
yes, I know.
How to practice it constantly so that you can become detached. Practice it constantly. How to become detached? If you're practicing it correctly, you will become detached. Your focus is not to become detached. Your focus is to practice it regularly. I can tell you what I've done and the things that have helped me. For me, time and time again, I'm going to point you to the same answer. Teachings, wisdom. Start to become so familiar with the teachings. That doesn't mean mechanically read them. It doesn't mean to satisfy yourself by saying, I've read my prayers this morning, I'm done, I ticked that box. If you haven't understood them, stop reading them. Other people will not tell you that. They will say that don't listen to him, he's a sinner, blasphemy, all those sorts of things. They'll say, regardless of if you're happy or not, make sure you read your 5 prayers a day. and I don't say that. They are interpreting rules based for a certain type of person at a certain amount of time. The wisdom that your great-grandparents and the previous generations were able to consume was in a language that they understood. So that's why they said, just read these prayers every day. Because they were reading it in a language that they understood. So they didn't appreciate that as each generation goes along, the language was changing and each generation was now understanding less and less and less of it. So their teaching is the same. Keep reading it. Read it every day. Seems to have worked for us. And what I've begun to understand is that we are now in a state where we may have read it for 20, 30 years of our life and we had no idea what we're reading. So now we're reading it almost like it's just magic words. Keep reading it and somehow it's going to just work. Bear in mind, again, this is no disrespect to anything else. There are other traditions that will openly tell you you don't have to know the meaning of these words, these mantras, these sounds are sacred. You read these sacred sounds and you will understand them. That is not Guru Nanak's technique. Guru Nanak's technique is these wisdoms have been around for thousands of years. Remember, the same thing has already happened. In Guru Nanak's time, wisdom was only taught in Sanskrit. It was blasphemy to teach wisdom in any other language because they were seen as inferior languages. You had to learn the language of the sadhus and the saints. And the Guru said, that's unkind. That's unfair. Some people are not educated. Some people don't have time. Why can't wisdom be available to people in their own languages? And the Guru, out of the kindness of his heart, gave you shabads in so many languages. Guru Granth Sahib Ji is filled of so many languages and dialects. Why? Because understanding was the highest thing. Shabad vichar, contemplate. Look at even the instructions that you've been given, even in the Japji Sahib. Amrit vela sach nao vadiyai vichar. The one who wakes up in the early hours of the morning and starts to contemplate the greatness of the divine. That is freedom. That is your liberation. That is your practice. Learn those teachings. Regularly access wisdom. That has been my number one savior. And how you do it is whatever you like. For me, I would encourage you at least once a day, you read Hukamnama, you read a Shabad, a verse, and just go through the meanings, try and understand the meanings, try and think just for 5 minutes, what am I supposed to do with these teachings? Even if you understand one word or one line, that's a great start. And everybody will tell you, oh, it's too complicated, you can't do it. I said, read it in English. That's how I did it. You just start reading it in English. And of all of you that are sitting there thinking, oh, it's too complicated for me, I don't have time for this, you don't have 5 minutes. Then you're just making excuses. You have 5 minutes. Yeah, if 1 hour is too long, if reading all the verses is too difficult, you have 5 minutes. Regularly do this. The wisdom works in such a way that the more and more you understand, the wisdom starts to take over. The wisdom will make you detached. You don't have to be detached. You just focus on your practice. Your second question was around intuition. Can you just repeat that for me, please?
Sit with yourself. Yeah, like sometimes when I close my eyes, sit with myself, thoughts come. Sometimes you just let them go. But at times, I'm not able to differentiate between the voice of doubts or the voice of intuition, which I also call the voice of divine. So how to clarify between the two?
I can help you. They're all the voice of your mind. Don't be fooled into thinking that God is speaking to you and telling you to take a left or a right. Your mind, based on your experiences, based on what you've learned, is leading you into whichever direction you like. It's like you going and looking at a cup of tea or a cup of coffee and saying, oh, what does God want me to drink? My intuition is telling me this is good. Now, if you are motivated by that, then the one that leads you to peace is always the right answer. If you are motivated by, let me figure out what is the right thing to do, sometimes I'm not sure, sometimes this or that, you will always be able to know within your heart which one feels more peaceful. I still stand by the fact that I think it's the voice of your mind. But you can always listen to your heart and say, what is my heart telling me? I don't know if that's God's voice, but something deep within you will motivate you towards peace. And you'll realize that that actually is one of the most fruitful ways to live. If you are split between, should I do this or should I not do this, just ask yourself which one leads to peace. And there's just not that much clarity, but sometimes there's very clear answers. If I don't do it, I'm going to be restless for a long time. I might as well do it. Yeah? So you always go within yourself, ask yourself which is the one that's working for me. And I think for me, that has been a very powerful thing. That I've always been very clear on, this doesn't feel right for me. I'm okay. Even if everyone else is doing it or this or that, or everyone's telling you, you should do this or you shouldn't do that, start building your own self-confidence. What is right for me? What feels right for me? And that starts to become a really great way to live life, to constantly just be flowing towards peace.
Sat Shri Akal ji.
Okay.
I have two questions. My first question is about the Gurbani tuk that you just mentioned a while ago. Tera kiya meetha lage, har naam padarat nanak naam. What I understand from that is like raza vich razi rehna. Am I right? But then at certain times, we face certain situations which becomes very difficult to control ourselves. And we automatically become sad, depending on that, on the situation. And my question is that, how do we overcome that sadness and be happy with the raza? That is my first question. And my second question is about liberation. What we used to understand from the word mukti was getting rid of birth and death cycle. But then I'm sure according to Gurbani it is something else. And related to that, my question would be is, Jivan Mukat, how do we reach that level?
Thank you.
Two questions.
Thank you. So we'll deal with the mukti question later because I know that we had some related ones to that. So your first question was around how do you start to accept some of the difficult situations in life? It's very interesting when you speak to your community, your elders, and how they use this language of acceptance. Many times, people use acceptance when they have lost all control. When an event is happening that they have no control over, then they say, what can you do? We have to accept it. Pana manana chaida. We have to accept the divine will. But if you notice in their language, that isn't acceptance, that's failure. That is where you have said, what you're really saying is, if it was up to me, I wouldn't have it happen that way. But because it's not up to me, we have to accept it. That is not acceptance. Acceptance is that every moment is genuinely feeling like a sweet experience for me. How you get to that state is that you have to start with the very small annoyances in your life. See if on a daily basis, right here, right now, throughout the rest of this hour, for the rest of the day, which small things trigger your frustration. You'll notice that you have very simple small things that trigger you. Start with those. Can I just try one day without frustration? Can I try one day, just 24 hours, where nothing is going to faze me, where I'm going to accept and enjoy everything, the good and the bad? Once that becomes your practice with the smaller things, you will find very quickly that you're able to overcome the smaller things and move on to bigger and bigger things. The masters were so trained in this technique that Guru Arjan Dev Ji is literally sitting on a hot plate being tortured to death, and he's doing it with a smile on his face. That is so advanced. And sometimes I had to ask myself this question, why such great masters have had to go through so much suffering? But the truth is, the masters wouldn't call it suffering. The masters had to show you this is the level of human bliss that is possible. That even in moments of torture, we can show you that your capacity for bliss can reach up to here. We have to do it so that it becomes a long-lasting memory and a legacy for you. Now you ask yourself, can't I deal with these things? When the master of my tradition is able to deal with the worst. When Christ is on the cross, he says, forgive them, Lord. They don't know what they're doing. Forgive them. Look at the level that spiritual masters have gone to show you that even in their hardest times, we need to show, even this is a learning moment. This is a moment for you to learn a new lesson. Even in their so-called suffering, they're so compassionate, they're using that as a way to teach. Look how much compassion they have. How did they reach that? It must have started with smaller things. What we do, though, is we just assume, oh, they're the gurus. They're the masters. They're the magic men. We can never do that. And so what you end up doing is you just end up worshipping them rather than actually following their teachings. The teaching says, in every moment, find bliss. In every moment, let go of your frustrations. In every moment, take it as a moment of acceptance. So start with just 24 hours. Ask yourself, next 24 hours, let me see if nothing phases me, whatever happens. And you'll notice you might not even go 24 minutes. It becomes so clear to you that I'm so weak in this practice. I haven't practiced this. But I listen to the teachings and then I don't know why when big things happen, I still struggle. Because when small things happen, you're struggling. Start with that. If you have any hope that some major disaster is going to come in your life and you're not sure how to emotionally ride it out, which we're all going to deal with these in some point in our life, start now. Even the smallest things. My shoes are uncomfortable. I'm not comfortable in this chair. Oh, the temperature in the room is not right. Mita, mita, mita. This is beautiful. This is blissful. This is sweet to me. Start training your mind. And you realize that this you can do, this yoga, you can do anywhere, anytime. It's a beautiful teaching. Thank you.
So the question...
My second question.
Yeah, you can start with that and then I'll add these in.
Yeah.
We can answer it in one go.
Shall I say the question?
Yes.
It's about liberation. According to what we used to understand from the word mukti was getting rid of birth and death cycle. But then according to Gurbani, I'm sure it is something else. And on top of that, I want to know is like, there's Jivan Mukat, how to reach that level.
Yep. Thank you.
The question was, if there is reincarnation, what is it that reincarnates? The Atma, the Chit, or Man?
Okay, so there's a question about the technicalities of reincarnation, and this is about what is the old idea of mukti, freedom from it, and how does the Guru define mukti? There is ancient teachings around what happens to you once you go. The problem with that is that every culture came up with their own answers. If you go back to the origins within Indian wisdom, even amongst the various schools of Hindu philosophy, they can't quite agree. If you go to the Middle East and those traditions, they'll say, no, there's nothing that reincarnates. There's just up or down. If you live a good life, you go to heaven. If you don't, you go to hell. You have this eternal place that you end up with. And go back to India and the Buddhists and the Hindus, and they're saying, no, there's a cycle and there's this many lives, and maybe you go to this place if you do this. There might be one heaven according to the Western traditions, but the Indians are saying, actually, we've counted multiple heavens. Actually, there are layers to our heavens and layers to our hells. Which heaven are you talking about? Guru Nanak comes along and he says, there are so many different layers to these things that I can't count how many heavens there are. I can't count how many hells there are. And I don't know when I die where I'll end up. But I do know I can be free now. Now, we have to, at least according to me, dispel some myths that people hold within the Sikh tradition. The Sikh tradition speaks to different people and different cultures at different times. And what's a cause of confusion for some people is that people like to read Gurbani as every word must be literally understood. So if Gurbani says that there are 8.4 million lives, well, if the Guru said it, that it must be true. But Gurbani also talks about heaven and hell, so which one is it? Do you go to heaven or hell, or do you get reincarnated? And the people who are literally translating it, they get confused there. So they say it's all of them. As long as the Guru says it, it's all of them. What the Guru is doing is talking to different communities based on their motivations, based on their understanding, based on their fears. So if Gurbani mentions 8.4 million lives, it doesn't mean that there are 8.4 million lives. It just means that that's the language of these people. That's how they're talking. And he says that for you, I'm going to explain my technique so that it will free you from your 8.4 million lives. He's not confirming that I believe in it. He's saying, you believe in it. So I have to talk to you in your language. But the Guru doesn't go to the East, the Middle East, to Baghdad and tell them about 8.4 million lives. Look at the shabads, look at the language. When Gurbani is talking to the people from the Persian areas and beyond, he's not telling them about their reincarnation. Imagine going to them and talking about reincarnation. They'll say, Guruji, what are you talking about? We don't believe in these things. So the Guru gives you a method of freedom that is not dependent on your death. The very simple formula that you might want to think about is if you can't find freedom now, liberation now, you're not going to find it after you die. So he focuses on Jivan Mukt. Again, these words have existed. I'm not one of these people that tries to make it sound like Guru Nanak just fell out of the sky with a whole new vocabulary. Please do some reading. Read some of the ancient scriptures. All of these terminologies were there, but what Guru does is he helps clarify the meanings. He said, you think it means this, but it actually means this. The Guru is trying to clarify the terminology that people already use. So the Guru gives a simple formula. He says, I'm not interested in your liberation. I'm not interested in that kind of liberation. Raj na chahu, mukt na chahu. I don't want to have a kingdom. I don't even want to have freedom, liberation from reincarnation. He says, Man preet charan kamalare. My mind just wants to be in love with God's feet. That's here, that's now. My mind desires love, divine love. And the way to do that is to be free now. The question is, free from what? In the ancient techniques, the freedom was when you die, you have to be free from rebirth. The Guru is saying, I'm not interested in being free from rebirth. I'm interested in being free from what's weighing me down now. What's weighing me down now is my own sense of self-importance. My ego, my attachments, my distractions, my emotions, they're all weighing me down right now. I'm drowning in these. I don't care about what happens several decades from now. He said, I'm struggling right now with these things. I want to be free from those. So Jivan Mukta is the idea that while you're alive, you are living slightly detached from the world. A related word to Jivan Mukt is Jivat Mare. Be dead while alive. And what that means is that you have to live in the world but not get absorbed into it. Be slightly detached from it. Play the game slightly differently. And I've used this analogy before, but I think it might be useful. Because when we say things like live in the world but be detached from it, you say, well, I don't know how to do that. But you do. And the example that I think that works really well is if you ever play a game with a child and you notice that a child is taking the game way too seriously. You're playing the game, but you don't really care what the points are. You're just there to have fun with the kids. But the kids are so obsessed with the points and getting it the way that works for them. And they get very happy when they win and they get very sad when they lose. And as an adult, you're sitting there thinking, this is a game. Why are you getting so emotionally involved with the game? The spiritual masters are looking at you and saying, this is a game. Why are you getting so involved with the game? We're looking at the children and saying, don't you know how to play games properly? Why do you get so emotional? The gurus are looking at us and saying, don't you know how to play life properly? Why are you getting so emotional? So the kids can't understand that this is a game. They're too emotionally involved with it. They care whether they win or lose in that game. As a parent, you don't care. You already know how to play games and be detached. So the Guru is saying, right, just like the child is getting too emotional and you know how to be detached, how did you do that? How is it that you can play a game and the child can't play the game without getting emotional? Because at some point you grew out of it. You matured out of these games. Probably when we were children, we played the same way. We were just too emotionally involved because this was our whole world. Children don't know about mortgages and they don't know about paying the rent. They don't know about earning money. They don't know that when things run out, you have to go and take all the responsibilities to go and refill the fridge. They don't know these responsibilities. So their world is very small. And in their world, this game is important because that's their world. You are playing a different game, but it's also a small game. That's what we're doing. We're playing a game. But for us, it doesn't feel like a game. This is real. And if you ask the child, he'll say, this is not a game. This is important. You see the analogy? How did you transition from one to the other? You eventually changed your understanding of life. You grew out of it. These toys no longer meant something to you. You matured out of it. There is a way for you to mature out of this as well. Mature out of your attachments to your children, out of your attachment to your body, out of your attachment to your finances and your house, out of your attachment to your reputation and what other people will think of you. There's a way to mature out of it. That requires time, that requires wisdom. That is called Jivat Mare. That is Jivan Mukti, being detached from life, being detached from your ego, being detached from your mind. In order to do that, you have to attach to something else. If you didn't know other things, you would still be attached to those games. But because you found new distractions, you lost your interest in the small games. In order for you to detach yourself from life, you have to attach yourself to something even higher. That's the work. That's the direction. That's the game of life.
Following on from the subject of Jivan Mukt or Jivat Mare, if you don't manage to achieve liberation while alive, the ego dissolves with the body after death anyway. Does this mean that every soul will reunite with oneness regardless of the deeds performed in this lifetime?
So the question is, the ego dissolves with death. So when you die, does that mean you reconnect? That's a very big statement, whoever asked the question that said that the ego dissolves after death. Even Bhagat Kabir ji says, Na jana baikunt kahan hi. He says, I don't know what happens when I die. I don't know where my soul is going to go. But he says, I'm not interested in that heaven. He said, when I sit with other saints, with other meditators, and we're singing and we're praising the divine, he said, I know which heaven I'm interested in. That's the heaven I'm going to find. So even the masters have said, I don't know. Nobody has gone there and come back and told us, go there, take a left, take a right, this is where your soul's going to go. They haven't done that. So there are lots of ideas of what happens, but we have no control over those big things. In fact, we don't even really know. There's certainly no scientist that's even been able to prove that you have a soul. So how are you going to say that, where is your soul going to go afterwards? There'll be huge swathes of the population that say, we don't even have a soul. We haven't found anything. What are you talking about? And other people will say the whole life is a soul. It is one big soul. So I want us to sometimes not get lost in this philosophy. Bring it back. I don't know where I'm going to go when I die. I don't know whether I get reincarnated. I don't know where my soul goes. What do I know now? Right now, I am here. Right now, this moment can be a heaven, or this moment can be a hell. That I know for sure. That is my experience. That in the same moment, I can either be in heaven or I can be in hell. When I'm in hell is when I'm in my expectations, when I'm in my mind, when I'm in ideas of life shouldn't have gone like this, this is not meant to be. When I'm in heaven is when I drop my expectations, drop my frustrations, and I simply enjoy the flow of life. That heaven and hell is the game that you want to play. That's the little bit that you can say, I know how to do that. There's very clear black and white emotions that I experience. Where I go after I die, some things are above my pay grade. I don't know. Let that happen. I don't remember where my soul was before it came into this body. So maybe it goes back, maybe it goes somewhere else. But I know where my mind is now. Play this. Be here. Use the teachings now. And I think that's where the Guru's wisdom tries to move you away from some of these big philosophies. And they just say, look, we don't know. You can't count these things. We don't know how many heavens there are. We don't know where your soul goes. We don't know if you're going to connect afterwards. But we do know there's a way to connect now. If you can't find oneness now, you're not going to find it afterwards.
Sadh Sangat Sachkhand hai. This is Sangat, this is Sachkhand.
So I have two sentences that I read in philosophy books that contradict each other. One is, for the fear of God, don't do this. And another author, for the love of God, don't do this. So I tried to reach to somebody. He says, I don't have an answer for this. Maybe your Sikh philosophy will have some answer. So if you could just, what is the right sentence to use? Because fear of God, don't do this. For the love of God, don't do this. But Indian people, Rab vaste na karo. So which is the most appropriate sentence to use in a situation if you want to guide somebody about love to God?
So it's to some extent related to the question that we had around fear and love. For me, I really like this analogy of your connection with the divine oneness is like a marriage. And if you think of your own marriage, if you think of your own partners, sometimes you do things out of fear because you're worried about what they'll say. Sometimes you do things out of love. The partner hasn't changed, but sometimes different situations demand a different response. So you have to know that there isn't a one-size-fits-all. You can't say, I'm only going to act out of love. I'm only going to act out of fear. Why not just use both? Play with both of them. Use both of these tools that you have at your disposal. And if you don't, your partner will definitely make sure one or the other is the right one.
If you enjoy learning spiritual teachings and you're looking to deepen your understanding, the most effective way is to learn with a group of friends. Right now, you can set up your very own Nanak Naam meetup group from the comfort of your own homes. Gather your friends, family members or colleagues and start your very own wisdom group by visiting livingwithwisdom.org. There, you'll find a range of Nanak Naam courses designed specifically for groups that you can watch together and discuss. A growing number of people have already started their very own wisdom groups, and it's having a huge positive impact on their lives. Find out how easy it is to start your own wisdom group by visiting livingwithwisdom.org.
Can you share some simple examples of how parents of young children can teach or practice together oneness on a daily basis so we can move beyond being Sunday Sikhs?
That's a very good question, a very important one. Thank you. I can share with you what our practice is with our kids. So we're very blessed at home that we have Guruji at home, Guru Granth Sahib Ji. We have a dedicated room, as many people do within their families, within their homes. From a very young age, maybe from the age of 1 or 2, we had a practice that before they go to school, we'll spend some time in the room of Guruji's and read one of the teachings, Hukamnama, one of the daily verses, and discuss the meaning, however we understand it. So right from when our children were very young, they've been listening to my voice explaining to them. Now they're at the age where they think they've heard it all. So every day we started with reading a Hukamnama. Before they went to school, we would read it and they would get familiar with what some of the words were, and then we would just very quickly go through the meaning. And what that did for me is it forced me to take what I was reading and simplify it for a child. And you'll see that there's one of the best ways to learn yourself is to try and teach complicated ideas to small children, because you're forced to simplify it right down to the basic level. And you can't just get away with be a good person. Guruji, the summary of this is Guruji says be a good person, be kind. You know, I'm sorry to say, but there are a lot of people who say, I know what Gurbani is, I know what the Guru's teachings are. Guru teaches you to be a good person, Guru teaches you to love your neighbor, Guru teaches you to be a kind person. No, it doesn't. That's not what the Bani is about. The only people that say that are saying that's what all religions say, I don't need to read any of them. When you actually read the teachings, you're forced to understand them and explain them to children. You will learn so much just from doing that. So we started doing that every single day before school, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And then, as time went on, I started changing the formula slightly. I said, we're covering too many Shabads. Monday we're saying this thing, Tuesday a new Shabad, Wednesday a new Shabad. I don't know what they're getting. So let me simplify it. On Monday, we'll read a Shabad. On Tuesday, we'll take the same Shabad. We still have the same half an hour before they go to school. We'll take the same Shabad, and then I get a whiteboard and I'm drawing it. I'm saying, Guruji is saying this about life. And then I'm like drawing a picture. Oh, there's a man, he's drowning, and then there's a boat coming along that saves him. Guruji says that in the same way that a boat saves a drowning person, when you're drowning in your emotions, when you feel too sad, when you feel too frustrated, that there are teachings to help you lift you up. So you're drawing those things. So we started doing Monday Hukamnama. Tuesday, same Hukamnama, we're drawing it. Then it occurred to me, I'm telling these 4 or 5-year-old children, Guru Nanak says this, Guru Ramdas ji says that. And these people are nobody to the children's mind. Who are these people? Who is this Guru Nanak? So I realized that I have to give them some context. Wednesday, rather than doing a new Hukamnama, became stories about the Gurus. So when I say to you, Guru Nanak says this, you have some idea, who is this Guru Nanak? So we found a series of books that went through all the major stories, and we just say, this is what Guru Nanak was, this is what he did. Then Thursday became, well, the Guru's Shabads are daily talking about doing this Naam Simran. And we keep telling them doing this is very important, meditating on the name, Naam, the divine name, but we don't actually spend time with the kids doing it. Thursday morning became about doing that. You see? And it didn't start like that. This is over years we just developed the practice. This is still the practice we do with our kids. Every single morning before they go to school. Monday, Hukamnama. Tuesday, now I get the kids to draw it. So I'm asking them, you're old enough now, pay attention to what we're saying and start drawing a picture. However you understand it, draw it on the board. And then we go through the Shabad and they say, Daddy, this is what I saw. You mentioned that life is like a pot of gold. Here's a picture of a pot of gold. Whatever it is, right? So now they're paying attention, they're drawing it. Wednesday, we went through the series of all the Gurus. Then we ran out of all the books. Let's go through the stories of all the Bhagats. We ran out of all of those. Let's go through the stories of all the Shaheeds and the great battles, and we do all of those. So we've been doing this same formula day in, day out. Thursday has always been a meditation day, but now I get them to do it. Right? Monday is your turn, Tuesday is your turn. Oh, sorry, one Thursday is yours, next Thursday is yours, next Thursday is mine. Oh, whose meditation day is it? Oh, I did it last week, you do it. So they're now teaching us meditation. They're sitting there and the kids say, close your eyes, focus on your breathing. They're doing the meditation for us. And Friday they said, Daddy, can we have a day off? I said, all right, Friday you can have the day off. So that's literally what we've been doing since the children were small. And what we do is a little bit of that wisdom every day, just chipping away. And then realistically, as we all do, by the end of the day, does anyone remember what the Shabad is? Does anyone remember what the teachings is? They said, no. Okay, don't worry. Tomorrow we'll cover it again. And then we start again. So the same stuff that I say to you about spend 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes a day is the same thing that's worked for me, is the same thing I'm trying to get into my children. Try and make it practical. You will get people that tell you, no, don't do this, that's wrong, this is wrong. Please don't listen to them. There are too many people who just want you to follow the rules, whether you're happy or not, whether you get it or not. And they are not interested in you. They're just interested in you being a sheep and following it. Because that's what they've been doing, just sheep-like mentality, following. And they're not doing it out of compassion for you. Because if you say to them, I don't understand it, they'll say, keep going. Whereas what I'm trying to help you with is, if it's not working this way, try this way. If it's not working this way, try this way. But understanding is the most important part of it. And if you can do that with your children, try and get them to understand it. Try and use any analogies, anything that they'll understand, any characters from TV shows that they're watching, and say, oh, you know how character is doing it to this person? In the same way your ego is doing this to you. Whatever it takes. Make it relevant. And you'll notice this is the technique of Gurbani. Gurbani would use any analogies that people understood. Oh, you're a farmer? Let me explain it to you like a farmer. You're a business person, you're a trader, okay? You do import-export, just the way that you do your business, try and do this in your life. Yeah? Making it relevant, making it easy to understand. So it gets rid of some of the rigidity around the rules. The priority is not the rules, the priority is the wisdom. Do you get the wisdom? Any way that you can instill the wisdom into your children. And this is very different to what a lot of people will do, which is getting their children to just perform well. Look at my kid, he can do the whole Japji Sahib. Look at my child, he can do Kirtan on stage. Oh, he does this or he does that. I'm not telling you not to do those things. Of course, they should learn those things as well. But practicing without wisdom, you're just making the same mistakes again and again. You're putting those same mistakes into your children, which is just giving them a practice, but you're not actually asking them, do you live like that? Are you showing kindness in your day-to-day reactions? Are you understanding that when you get frustrated, do you remember we talked about that Shabad about frustration and anger and the mind? Now is an opportunity to practice it. Making it real for their life. I think that's the best advice that I can give you for children. Just any way to instill the teachings. First, you have to know it yourself. You have to practice it. You have to read it yourself. Instill it in the kids and however they'll do it. And I think too many people are just very satisfied, oh, my kid, he can do the bare minimum. He's able to read certain prayers, he's able to sit on the stage and do these shabads, he does this, he won this prize because he could remember the names of the gurus. We're not interested in that. The Guru is trying to make you enlightened, not just a performer, not just somebody that looks good and religious on the outside but hasn't done anything on the inside. And the Guru specifically references these sorts of behaviors that all religions are doing, the people who just look very religious. But inside they're just as frustrated. Inside they're just as greedy, they're just as selfish. And they just grow up into adults that have become very good at showing themselves to be religious, but they haven't actually become that enlightened person. So the Guru makes it simple for you. Your religion is not defined by what you look like on the outside. That's just the golden rule. Look like whatever you want on the outside. Be the most amazing looking monk in the world that can recite all the prayers off by heart. But if you're greedy and selfish on the inside, Guru Nanak says, sit down. You haven't even started yet. This is what we need to instill in our children. Real values. Ven gun pagat na hoye. Without qualities, ven gun kite pagat na hoye. Without qualities, there is no devotion. So you have to generate these qualities within them, not just good-looking, religious-looking children.
Virji, my question we have been talking all about spiritual nature and matter. My question is very much of a worldly matter. We have been discussing about our younger generation being very practical in the quest of knowledge, wisdom, religion, our next generation. Now for our young boys and girls who chose to be in a Sikhi Sarup and chose to practice their own religion, knowing very well that the people who are non-Sikhs and not in Sikhi Sarup may be more enlightened and more spiritual than they are. Yet when they become very global citizens as part of their education or qualifications or career path, they need to explain, they feel morally responsible to explain to a non-Sikh person as to why they have chosen this and what Sikhi means in less than few minutes, because you don't want to indulge with strangers in more than few minutes as well. So while traveling, while in the airports, in the schools, uni, their career, their work path, how do they explain in few minutes what words to put in that why I am in my Sikhi Swarup and what Sikhism means to a non-Sikh person, a new generation, a younger crowd of a non-Sikh person. Thank you.
You're not going to like my answer.
I know.
How are they going to explain to someone else why they are what they are is when they know for themselves why they are what they are. And it's very hard when they've been brought up to do what parents have told them to do. Why are they following the religion? Because they're afraid of their parents. They want their parents to love them. They want their parents' approval. So when they get asked the question, their answer is, it's my religion. I don't know the answer to the rest of it, but I know that this is my religion. And we need to give them the language of what does this mean. You almost have to challenge them and say, if you're not allowed to use the word, this is my religion, how would you answer it? And then they have to think. And the way to do that is to get them to think. Start discussing with them, start speaking to them, start having conversations with them. What do you think it means? We want to hear from you. We've told you what we think oneness is. What do you think oneness is? In your life, in your words, in your day-to-day interactions. One of the ways that we've been trying to do this for families, because this is the same problem that happens all the time. These are the same problems around the world. We realized that as a community, we have stopped the practice of dialogue. And learning has become a passive experience. You sit, you be quiet, the person on the stage knows all the answers, he does all the talking, you do all the listening. That is what has become the practice. And the gurus were so much about dialogue, so much about understanding, so much about vichar, about explaining, about reflecting. And we've lost that. There's a beautiful verse written by Bhai Gurdas Ji, and he talks about the impact that Guru Nanak was able to have when he was traveling around the world. He said, Jithe Baba pair tare puja asan thapan soa. Wherever Guru Nanak laid his feet, that place became a place of worship. But then he says, Kar kar andar taramsal hove kirtan sada visoa. Every home became a learning center. Taramsal. He didn't use the word Gurdwara. Kar kar andar taramsal hove. We've lost that tradition. Your home must become a learning center. Learning what? Spiritual wisdom. You know the people who do this very well? People who are parents who are homeschoolers. When your children are homeschooled, home is their school. And one thing they do well is they use every opportunity to teach a subject. Even if the children are washing the dishes, you say, oh, look, let's talk about the physics of heat, hot water and cold water. Yeah? So they're teaching the subjects in the day-to-day. How do we do that? How can we start making these discussions part of the daily conversation? Many of us don't even sit around the dinner table anymore. How many of us are guilty of feeding our kids in front of the TV? So they're eating and they're just watching TV. Sit around the table, discuss, spend time with them. One of the ways that we've tried to help with this is we launched a project to create learning centers in the home. That project is called Living with Wisdom. You can go online. It is a free course. If you just search for Living with Wisdom, We created a course for you to sit around the dining table with your family. You watch a video, the videos are like 8, 10 minutes long, 15 minutes long, very short, and then it ends with questions. And questions not about what facts and figures do you remember, questions about life, about emotions. And we did this with our children, and we couldn't believe how deep these children were thinking at such a young age. All they needed was the opportunity for somebody to just ask them, what do you think? And it wasn't, no, your answer is wrong or right. No, what do you think? This is how I see it, this is how you see it. What is the Guru trying to say? So we are encouraging everyone, please, it's free. Livingwithwisdom.org is a website. You can go there, you can sign up for free, you can sit around the table with your kids and follow this course. And it's very accessible for people of any age, any culture, any background. You don't need to know anything, you don't need to cover your head, you don't need to worry that you're not doing it right or wrong, you don't need to worry that you can't read a certain language. It's made for everyone. The reason for us to do that was to help kickstart your own family discussions. And it sounds simple, but it's not that easy to actually get everyone to sit around the table and discuss it, because there's so much resistance. Oh, Mom, I've got tuition, I've got this, I've got that class, I've got this and that. At some point, you have to prioritize it. Now, here's another thing for parents and children. A lot of parents will say, my kid doesn't feel like doing it. I can't force them. And for me, if your child needs to go to a hospital appointment or a doctor's appointment, and they say that I don't feel like going, you say, actually, you need to go. If your child says, I don't feel like going to school, you're not gonna just leave them at home all day. You'll say, no, some things are important, this you have to do. You're not forcing them, but you're not really giving them a choice. So you do know how to do this. You have to make it a priority for you. Is it something that you're interested in? Get the children actively thinking, actively talking. Stop making religion this passive experience of just you consuming the facts and figures and then you being able to regurgitate them. You just learning the rituals and just doing them. This is a wisdom tradition. So start having conversations, start internalizing. You know, I went to work today and I got frustrated at this thing, even though I know that it's not a big deal. Okay, so I learned something about myself. What frustrated you in school today? So then, when somebody asks them, what is this? They should hopefully be able to say, actually, this is a really good way to understand yourself. This is not just my religion. This is how we understand life. These are tools, trainings, teachings to help us make life flow better, feel better. And we think everybody should have a good life. And not everybody's having a good life. Not a good life based on the amount of stuff that you have, but a good life based on a good mind. But that can only happen if we start having these conversations with our children and we start actually internalizing these teachings ourselves.
Just a simple question, but kind of, you talk about oneness, it's like your big theme, that all things are not separate, and part of the suffering comes because we identify basically with temporary things. But I mean, first off, we all identify each other by name, everybody in this room, me, you, etc. And then also when we have an internal conversation, like something good happens in our life, we might say like, oh, thank you, God, or when we beg for something, oh, please, God. I mean, it just shows up in the mind in that conversation, right? Even today, in the guided meditation, as we were doing the breathing, it was like, it was just an English or Anglicized version of Tu Hi meditation, but done with this format. So my question is like, these are kind of like blatant dualities. How does this, how do you reconcile that with your version of oneness? The first duality, our identification with our name, and the second maybe how do we go from making God separate as a you to actually becoming one with it?
Thank you. That's a very good question. If everything is oneness, why is there so much duality, even in the language of the spiritual masters, even in our practice? The simple truth is because two things can be true at the same time. And an analogy that I think works really well is if you and I are having a conversation about nothing is real, we're all made of cosmic dust, we're all part of this one universe, and then someone comes along and says, but your car park ticket is running out, you need to go and put more money in the meter. You're not going to respond and say, well, there is no car, we're all cosmic dust, we're all part of the universe. Right? Both things can be true. You are part of the oneness, but you do need to go and sort your car out at the same time. They're both true. One doesn't negate the other. So sometimes it's good to talk from the higher perspective, and at other times it's good to talk from the local perspective. You can call it the macro and the micro. They're both happening at the same time. So, for some people, they don't want to intellectualize these big things. Oh, we're all part of a oneness, there's no me, there's no you, it's all part of one reality. Maybe they can't understand it, maybe they haven't experienced it. So then you simplify it for them and you say, for you, try this. Guru uses duality in a very beautiful way. Firstly, he rejects the idea of duality right from the beginning. The very first word of the entire scripture is oneness, ek onkar. There is only one truth. That's the big picture. But in that, the recognition is, but in the day-to-day life, I don't feel like oneness, I feel like me. So then the Guru says, okay, you're still part of the oneness, oneness is still true, you're the small, and that is the big. And the way, the analogy that the Guru uses is this is the ocean, you are a drop in the ocean. Which one do you want to focus on? Both are true. You are a drop in the ocean, but you are also the ocean. Sagar mein boond, boond mein sagar. The ocean is in you, and you are in the ocean. So the Guru uses duality, dualistic language of you and you, me and you. But always playing with these dualities. Sometimes to the people that they are explaining it to, they just say, worship God, God is the doer of everything. You need to remember God in your day-to-day interactions. And in other ways it says, I am you and you are me. Tohi mohi, mohi tohi, antar kaisa. Where is the difference between you and me? So it just depends. Use both. Play with these things, understand these things. Both of them can be true at the same time.
Following on nicely from that is a question that somebody's asked. Can you really pray for someone? What can you do when someone you love is struggling? Can you change their outcome?
Every part of the wisdom that I have come across and interacted with and tried to internalize has led me to the conclusion that nothing you say or no amount of praying is going to influence what the flow of life is going to do. Now, within the Sikh tradition, you get so many people teaching the power of ardas. And they'll tell you one story or another where one person did something and then they prayed and everything changed. And this power of ardas is this really important kind of thing. But it's always done about external things. And for me, what I always say is, that's a nice story, thank you. Find me shabads that tell you this. Tell me where the Guru has told you that when somebody is ill, you can pray and God will listen and change their destiny. I have not come across that. There is power in prayer. But the ardas is always about you and your mind. Gurbani says, Ji jant sab sarab tumare, sab sharan tumare, sarab chint tud paase, jo tud paave soi changa, ek nanak ki ardase. Ji jant sab sharan tumare. All beings are under your protection, under your shelter. Sarab chint tud paase. All my worries I give to you. Jo tud paave soi changa. Whatever you want to do, O oneness, O God, let me find it as good. This is Nanak's one and only ardas. This is his only prayer. Where is the wisdom? It's great when people sit on stage and they tell you about these stories and these and that, the other. And I always say, those stories are not my guru. The Shabad is the guru. The wisdom is the guru. Tell me where the guru teaches you this. What does it mean when your loved one is struggling? There is comfort in prayer. You can feel that at least I've done something good. I feel like I've made a prayer. Maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't. For me, in moments like those, my prayer is, please can I accept whatever outcome you choose to do? Can I learn to accept? Give me the strength to learn to accept. I don't know what you plan to do. Because if you don't do that, the alternative can actually be quite arrogant. God, you've decided this important thing is going to happen with my loved one. I think you made a mistake. I think you should let them be like this. I think their health should be good. I think they should live. You're going to tell God what God is going to do? How do you know? What wisdom are you basing it on? What audacity do you have that you will tell God or ask God, God, I don't think this is right. I think it should go this way. We don't. What are we doing? That is totally opposite to the Guru's teachings, which is acceptance, acceptance, acceptance. The Guru goes as far as saying that you cannot connect with God in any other way but through acceptance. God is too big, too mysterious. You're not going to find him, but in accepting the divine will, you will find God. Because that's real. That's stuff that's happening right now. In the divine will, in accepting hukum, in accepting, you just practice accepting, accepting. Even the good and the bad. Even the stuff that you never thought was going to happen. And that's where it becomes really difficult. And to be honest, some people are going to say, well, if that's your religion, I'll go to another religion that allows me to pray. In these other religions, I can pray. What I'm saying to you is, you are not able to influence the flow of life. And that's a hard lesson to swallow. Other religions want to give you simple things that says, oh, come here. Come here, you pray to our God listens to everything you say. And then when it doesn't turn out, well, God works in mysterious ways. So you kind of have a 50-50. If it goes the way you prayed, they'll convince you, look, God heard your prayer. And if it doesn't go the way you prayed, oh, God has a plan. Yeah? There must be something good in this. They don't admit that it's not worked. So I'm not trying to trivialize people's suffering. I know there are people right in this room right now that are going through some real hardships. But I'm also not going to wrap a cotton wool around you. This is life. Life is ups and down. The entire point of the wisdom was to get you to learn how to play the game of life. You're not going to be able to change the fact that life and death both come as a package. Health and suffering, health and illness are part of the game of life. You're not going to be able to change that. As much as you don't want your loved one to be in suffering, as much as you don't want them to be ill, as much as you'd love for everything to be happy and rosy, that is not life. Guru Nanak is giving you the bitter pill of truth. Life is ups and downs, but just because life is going up and down doesn't mean your mind has to go up and down. You cannot change the outside, but you can change the inside. So I really do not believe you can pray to save somebody else. If you're going to pray, pray for the wisdom to accept the difficulties and the pleasures of life.
A recent study has shown that over 75% of Sikhs say that their life feels stressful or overwhelming. These feelings can develop into depression, alcohol abuse, or even suicide. We believe that Guru Nanak's wisdom can help transform people's lives. Nanak Naam relies on your donation to help create more videos and podcasts like this to educate people all over the world on how to use Guru Nanak's teachings to improve their emotional, mental, and spiritual well-being. Set up a monthly donation today and help change someone's life. Visit nanaknaam.org/donate.
Thank you for taking the time to share your wisdom with us. I feel like the Guru Granth Sahib Ji is beautiful, full of wisdom, and way ahead of his time. Lately, science is just catching up to it, and especially in quantum physics and quantum mechanics. And I'm very interested in those things. And so many things have been proven recently that's been in the scripture for a long time, like the oneness, the vibration, and also some bigger things like how the universe is expanding and how we're all connected. So in our house with the kids, when they say to maybe what's the proof of God, and I find myself using a lot of science to explain spirituality and like how you have your very beautiful culture that you do at home. We watch some science videos or video of space and how insignificant we are and how big and beautiful God's creature is, the creation is, and it's expanding and etc., etc. But is that okay to do? Am I moving them away from religion or Sikhism? But it's nice to share these things with them, and they're very interested in it. My daughter loves science and space, so to bring them together, to entangle them together, is that wrong to do? To use science and mix them along with spirituality and especially Sikhism? What is your take on that, and how is our guru's take on science? Is it two separate things, or can we mix them together? Can we have fun with it?
Thank you. Yeah. I'm going to point you to Harmeet. Because what you're doing with science is part of her daily practice.
I think it's really important for perspective, and that's exactly what I do. I find it really allows your mind to expand, to just remember certain things, like the fact that even the distance that our Earth is from the sun, and how that relates to the solar system. The fact that our sun is just one star in a galaxy of 300 billion stars, and that's one galaxy out of 2 trillion that we know. So going through a process of actually just remembering these things, it puts everything else into context. And even the theory of entanglement, the fact that you want something, to particles in different places, you do one thing to one particle and it affects something else. The fact that, we know Gurbani talks about this as an energy, that this oneness, there's no word to describe it. And so whatever science is discovering is a glimpse of what this is trying to talk about. No words, nothing can put it into words anyway. It's just how different things can point to it in different ways. So I would say absolutely, whatever technique you can use to drop the self, to drop the individual and expand into what this is, you know, what magnificence this is.
I want to clarify something around this assumption that religion is in contradiction to science. Religion is a way of finding truth. Science is another way of finding truth. Before science, people came up with ideas, philosophies, which didn't have a way to be proven. Once you have the invention of the right tools, the right techniques, the right formulas, you start to see this very quick understanding of the universe start to develop. In Europe, there's actually a time period called the Enlightenment, which is actually when scientific ideas started to take over, and they no longer relied on the church for the ideas of how the world works. What happened then is that the church got stuck, that we've been saying it's this way, but science is now saying it's something else. And so you had a split. You either believe them or you believe us. You either believe that the earth is 6,000 years or billions of years old. That is a very unique problem to some religious practices. Even within their own religions, there are some scientists that are very spiritual and some scientists that are very connected to the church, connected to those religions. And so it becomes a question of interpretation. There are some people who will look at the traditions of the Bible and they will say, no, this doesn't mean these things. It can't be taken literally like this. It should be interpreted in this way. So where you're finding this idea that religion and science are incompatible, unfortunately what's happened is some of the problems that are encountered by other major world religions, such as Christianity, seem to now be applied to all religions. Whatever Christianity says or does somehow becomes the gold standard of religion, and now everybody must assume that if that's the way that it is for Christianity, then all religions are like that. And that's just simply not true. That's the whole point, that you have these varieties of ideas. Within the Sikh tradition, we have no issue with science, because we have never attempted to answer the scientific questions. When the gurus were asked, how was the universe created? The guru says, who are we to know? We don't know. We're not interested in even trying to attempt that. All we know is when we look up, it feels like infinity. And when we look within ourselves, it feels like infinity. So we say, our understanding is it's too big. How big is the universe? They say it's infinitely big. So when scientists come along with tools to measure these things, we say, great, now you have a number. We're not in conflict with that. We're not interested in any of your numbers. There's only one number we're interested in, 1. So I want us to help. Again, this only works when you start to do a little bit of the reading and the practice yourself. You start to realize that not all religions can be painted with the same brush. We have no contradiction with science. If it says the speed of light is this, you say, great, we have no opinion on that. If you say gravity moves at this or sound moves at that, we have no opinion on that. When you say the mind works like this, you say, oh, we have an opinion about that. And what you'll find is, I love what you said about how science is catching up. A lot of the time when people say, oh, science is catching up with Gurbani, what they mean is the outside world. What you'll really find is science is still yet to catch up with the depth of the psychology and the understanding of the mind. That is a science. That is the science of Gurbani. And the best way to understand not just the gurus, but the Indian masters of all thousands of years that go far back, is how did they understand some of these things? They were, the best way that I've been able to describe it is they were the meditative sciences. They weren't coming up with conclusions on the outside world based on measurements and experiments. They were coming up with conclusions on the inside world based on their experiments. The reason I'm emphasizing this is how much compatibility there is with science and some of these traditions. What is science? Science is simply one person saying, I've measured this and I come up with this number, but I don't want you to take my word for it. If this number is true, any person should be able to measure it and come with the same number. Yeah, that's the scientific method. You measure something, and if I measure it and we get to the same number, then it is correct. Scientific papers are published, and then they are peer-reviewed. They're put into journals when other people can look at them and critique them. This whole idea of peer review is a beautiful part of science, that we're not going to take your word for it. We all have to check that your calculations are correct. This is exactly the method that the meditative scientists use about the mind. One person goes into his mind and says, I discovered this. Someone else says, okay, I'll try that. And again. What you have with Gurbani is tens of thousands of years of evolution of the meditative science. Gurbani is Gurmat, the psychology of enlightenment, the science of enlightenment. It is a science. It isn't wishy-washy beliefs. It isn't just theories that someone came up with, that I think the world is like this, or I think life was created like this. It is the science of the mind. And nobody has gone as deep into the mind as the Eastern traditions. That's just a fact. That's not me saying it because out of some sort of preference. The Buddhists, the Hindus, and the Sikhs are the ones that have gone deeper into the mind than anyone else. And they recorded it, and they peer-reviewed it, and they tweaked each other's findings and improved it further and further and further. So science is beautiful. Let's not get into this that is religion against science. They are both ways of finding truth in just slightly different methods. Either you use tools or you use self-analysis. These are all different types of sciences. So anything that inspires you. If you're inspired by space, beautiful. The gurus did the same thing. They just said, wow, there's a beautiful word that's called bismad. Euphoria. I feel euphoria at looking at your wonderful creation. You're doing that from space, and you're also doing it on the quantum level. It's infinitely big and it's infinitely small. So play with it. Enjoy it. It's there for you to enjoy.
We did a session with the teenagers, pretty much all of your kids yesterday. There was, I think it was a total of about 40 teenagers. And it was actually really interesting and reassuring that practically none of them still believe in God as a separate entity of something that's external, that's something that's separate. They were talking about an energy, something that is. So something's working, which is quite different to if you see, like from England, Christian communities, and there's still a concept of that, but also that this younger generation has an understanding that even our generation and the older generations may still be saying, oh, Babaji this or this, that, and the other. That duality aspect is harder for our generations to drop than the younger ones.
Thank you, Vijay, for making topics of oneness very much present in this room, and I've always seen your videos for the past decade talking about this, and also touching about Advait or non-duality. Thank you for touching upon that. Despite having followed this wisdom for, let's say, over a decade now, I still find it difficult when I go to leadership camps, when we talk about, worldly progress versus spiritual progress. it always seems like a dichotomy of choice when it comes to striving the balance between ambition versus humility. Whether we're progressing on the outer world, wealth or whatever health it may be, versus what we're actually trying to attain on the inside. So how do we find this balance and apply oneness in this aspect and not make it seem like a dichotomy of choice?
Thank you. Great question. So the question is around, is there a split in priorities? If you're spiritual, can you be worldly? Can you have worldly ambitions? Can you chase material success? Or is it about letting go of those things and actually focusing on something more internal, more deeper? One of the beautiful things within the Sikh tradition is you have the writings of saints, some of whom were very, very materially poor, and some of whom were very rich materially. So I'm thinking of Bhagat Pipaji, for example, who, correct me if I'm wrong, but actually came from royalty. And then within the same tradition, you have Bhagat Ravidas Ji, who on the outside came from very humble backgrounds. Internally, though, both of these were equal. Internally, they were spiritual masters. And what the beautiful thing about this teaching is that whatever phase of life you're in on the outside is not of any consequence to what you're doing on the inside. At no point in this wisdom do they teach you, don't go out and earn money. In fact, they did the opposite. Guru Nanak's tradition breaks away from the norms. Prior to his way of spirituality, the vast majority of people who wanted to become spiritual were encouraged to leave the world behind. You've got to leave your wife, leave your husband, leave your job, leave your home, because this is Maya. And we're trying to escape Maya. And the way to do that is we go into the mountains, into the jungles, into the ashrams, into the retreats, into the caves, and we meditate. We've done it. We've escaped Maya. We've proven that we are going to be enlightened masters because we're not doing it. We're not playing the game of life like everyone else. Guru Nanak Dev Ji comes along and he says, thank you, but what about all those people who are left behind in their world? What about the people who can't leave their jobs, who can't leave their families? What about the people who are not going to just abandon their children? Can you teach them a technique that works for them? And they said, no, we can't. In fact, some traditions even said, we only exclusively teach to men. Our tradition is so exclusive that even women aren't allowed. Guru Nanak says, I don't want that tradition. If you have a truth, then it has to be true for all people, of all religions, of all cultures, of all financial status, for kings and for beggars, if you have a truth. So he says, I'm going to come up with the way of truth that anybody can apply. So, by all means, go and earn as much money as you want. Drive a nice car. Live in a beautiful house. That is not your trapping. You can be trapped and fooled by anything. Even if you have a very small home, hardly any belongings, you could still look at your neighbor and say, well, at least he doesn't have one of these, I've got one of these. That's the thing that the Guru is trying to get you over, is that sense of, I am better than somebody else, I'm important. And you can do that whether you're very, very rich or even if you don't have that much. So, the one trapping that the Guru will teach you is not about how much you earn, but about how much you rely on your earnings to give you peace. If you are constantly frustrated, no matter how luxurious your lifestyle is, because you're just ambitious, yeah? Use the terminology that the Guru uses. We use ambition, motivated, he's got a good career path, he's got a goal that he's leading towards. The Guru doesn't use these words. They say you're obsessed, you're ill, you're misguided. We use the words like ambition because we want to sugarcoat it and say, oh, look, I'm a very ambitious person, I'm very driven, I'm very career-oriented. The Guru is saying, you can do all those things, but where is your mind right now? Can you be at peace now despite not having attained those goals? And what you will find, most of us are driven by this lack of peace. I'll only be happy when that happens. Once I get that, then I'll be happy. But if you spend every day being unhappy until you get the goal that you want, guess what happens when you get the goal that you want? Because you've practiced unhappiness for every day leading up to that, the day you get it, that happiness lasts for a very short amount of time. Why? Because you've practiced unhappiness every day. That is your practice. Your practice is, I don't know how to be happy now, so I'm going to assume happiness comes when that thing comes. And when that thing comes, the same old habits come back. I don't know how to be happy now. I thought this was going to make me happy. Oh, it must be because I didn't get the next thing. So I'm going to be happy when the next thing comes. That's been your practice. The Guru says it doesn't matter what you earn. Drive the nice cars. Have all the good things. Practice happiness now. Can you be happy if they come or if they don't come? That's the barometer that you want to use. That's the measure that you want to use. So it is irrelevant how much money you want to earn. Go for it. Enjoy it. But don't get sucked into it. Don't get lost into it. And that's very hard to do. Because the reality is we're all worldly people. We have a certain amount of comforts that we want. And the Guru, again, is not denying you that. He's saying, yeah, you need to have a roof over your head. You need to have companionship and a family. You need to have a nice bed. Sure, go for it. But when will it end? When are you going to start practicing peace? And what we do is we say, I'll be peaceful when I get all of these things. When I tick everything off my wish list, then I'll be peaceful. The Guru is saying, that's not going to work. We've tried it, we've done it. We've seen too many people fail doing that. So go for it, achieve your goals, but practice peace now.
I especially wanted to ask about the hair, especially how can we explain about keeping the hair to the younger generation, especially the boys? Because especially for us, it wasn't very clear given to that, like why do we need to keep our hair? It's just part of it's just one form of a Sikhi.
Yeah.
And with today's generation kids, they need more clarity and more reasoning to why. And by Bani, it does more talk about the spirituality rather than the physical look. Thank you.
A very similar question we had was, if we are all the same Jyot essence, what is the relevance of the Sikh appearance with the star and case?
I'm going to ask you, Harmeet, what is your experience of that? Because we both have two boys, and our experience with our boys is the only thing that we can share with. But I wonder if you have any thoughts around case before I give. The importance of why do we choose to keep that for our sons?
There's a connection, it's part of a uniform and a package that comes with this whole wisdom and understanding. Even Bani says, Pave lambe kes kar pave karar mundai. That in essence, the message of Gurbani is that it's not about long hair that's going to make you spiritual. But this tradition is all about acceptance of hukum. And for me personally, it's just not going against what my body's naturally doing.
Yeah. What we've learned is there is so much value in some of these external forms that we've been given, that what they do is they enhance your spirituality. I'm not one of these people that are going to tell you that your hair has energy in it and when you wrap it in a ball, you connect. I'm not going to tell you that this is where your dasam dwar is and when you wrap your hair around these things. I'm not going to tell you any of those things. That's not my experience. But what my experience tells me is when I look in the mirror, what I'm seeing reflected back to me is something that says, no matter what is happening in the world, you belong to a guru. You belong to a teacher, and that teacher shows you how to lead an amazing life, how to deal with the struggles of life. This is my commitment to that teacher. It's as simple as someone saying, when we get married, what do we need a wedding ring for? A lot of you who are married will have wedding rings. Now you can say, well, of course, our marriage is just as strong without it. But yet we see the value in that. We see it as a reminder for ourselves. We see it as a way to instruct the people around us to say, hey, I want to celebrate that I'm married. I want you all to know that I'm married. So you'll wear a ring. You'll notice Harmeet and I don't wear a ring because it's meaningless to us. But for millions of people around the world, there is value in you showing that. Showing it to yourself, showing it to others. Reminding yourself of this commitment that you've made. The only reason we struggle with that is because we've told, especially our young boys, you must keep it. Without anything. One of the ways that I like to use this analogy is every school has a uniform. Why are you okay with going to school and wearing a uniform? But this school, the school of the Guru, literally the word Sikh means student. That's literally the translation of that word. You are a student of this teacher, and this teacher has this uniform. Once you can explain something like that to the children, well, they say, Mom, Dad, but I'm not learning anything from this teacher. That's a problem. I'm wearing the uniform, but I don't go to the classes. So I don't understand why I'm wearing the uniform. And that is a perfectly valid question. It's like you giving your child or any adult a stethoscope and a white lab coat and say, you're a doctor. And he said, but I'm not a doctor. Oh, yes, you are. You have the lab coat. You have the stethoscope. That makes you a doctor. He'll say, but I don't know anything about how to be a doctor. I didn't go to the school. I didn't go to the medical school. I didn't do the training. I didn't get the qualifications. Does this make me a doctor? No. Does this make you a Sikh? No, it doesn't. It comes as part of a package. Now the question is, are we ready to enroll ourselves into the school and actually do the learning? Now the learning is very spiritual. The learning is for everyone. The teachings of Guru Granth Sahib are absolutely for the whole world. We don't restrict someone that says, if you don't grow your hair, then you're not allowed in this school. That's not what we do. Come in. Everybody come in. Come in. One of the things that you'll notice as you go through this school is the teachings are so much around be in the flow of life. Accept life. Accept your body. Accept God's creation. And one of the most wonderful ways to start practicing that is to just allow your body to do what it does naturally. It's such a beautiful lesson to look in the mirror and say, this is what the human form looks like. This is how it was made. Most of us are going to the salons because we are not accepting our bodies. Because we can't stand to look in the mirror and see the natural form. Because we have believed that society tells you that your hair is ugly. Look at who are you using as your barometer? We're using our friends and our culture and our society that teaches you women don't have any hair on your body. Men don't look like this. Men don't have long hair, men have short hair. Says who? says those people who are miserable, your Guru is telling you that these are gifts. And if you're not able to accept the gift of your own body, how are you going to accept the gifts of the ups and downs of life? Bear in mind, notice my words, I'm not telling you you should or you shouldn't do. Yeah? It's very difficult to explain these things to our children unless it starts to become part of our dialogue. If the wisdom is not part of your dialogue, if the only part of your religion that you follow is, we are sick, we wear these 5Ks, we go to the Gurdwara, we read these prayers, but there's no wisdom. This generation is moving so fast, you're going to lose them. For me, what I find is that if you allow yourself to become part of a particular tradition, if you wear the form, it is like a commitment. It is an internal commitment. It is something that is in your face. It's there all the time that says, this is who I am. No matter what happens in the world, this is my relationship with it. But it's okay if that's not who you are, if that's not what works for you, if that doesn't resonate for you. The way I understand it is not every monk, not every Buddhist is a monk. Not every Buddhist shaves their head, right? The monks do. They're not saying to every single person, you all need to shave your head, you all need to wear these orange robes. But they say, this is what works for us. And this is our practice, this is our love for this tradition. So we need to have the right balance. When you're introducing this wisdom to anyone from another tradition, you don't just start going in with the, you need to grow your hair, you need to wear the 5Ks, you need to do this, you need to do that. And once you do all those things, you're sick. That's unfortunately what we've done. That's unfortunately what we've done with our kids. We've satisfied ourselves that our kids are Sikhs because they wear, especially boys, because they have a patka on their head, because they have long hair. I'm sorry to say, most of those boys are not Sikhs. They're not Sikhs, but they're at least initiated. Now start teaching them in the same way that they're not doctors if you put a lab coat on them and you give them a stethoscope. Don't fool yourself that they're doctors. But you can give them those things and say, okay, lesson 1, lesson 2, lesson 3, you're working towards becoming one. Yeah? And if they say, Mom, I don't feel like a Sikh, that's because, no, you're not, but you're working towards becoming one. We're all working towards becoming one. One of the best things about our tradition is you never graduate from this school. You're always a Sikh, you're always a learner. You never graduate, you never become a teacher. So you tell your children, we're on the path. I'm in the school with you. I'm learning with you. Every day is a learning opportunity. And we wear this as part of our learning. But I know some of these conversations are difficult. I don't want to make it sound like it's so easy. There are some difficult conversations happening in the homes right now. That's something that you're going to have to work out. What I'm doing is I'm not trying to make it the be-all and end-all. I'm not saying that that's where it starts and ends. But for me, if you can start incorporating the wisdom with your practices, it starts to become easier. And I'm not saying that's going to get rid of all the problems. Each person is on their own journey. We can't judge them. But we can do everything that we can. Say, look, here, have access to all the tools. Have access to all the different teachings. And this is a method of teaching. This really is a lesson as well. Yeah, accepting the body. Yeah.
Hukum razai chalna. Yeah. I was going to say that I think also keeping of hair is probably one of the biggest barriers for women to connect with Sikhi, because it can, especially in this day and age in the Western world, we have so little tolerance for hair, and so that's one aspect of it. You know, even a normal amount of hair is seen as unacceptable, yeah. and so. That's one aspect of it, you know, with images and social media where everything is, what do you call it, when you change and you filters, yeah, with filters that make everything look unrealistically cleaned when reality isn't that. So that's one aspect of it. And then you see in Sikh communities around the world, especially more orthodox Sikh communities, where it's the other way, in the sense that you cannot touch a hair on your body, otherwise you are no longer a Sikh, because you are, this is Guru Di Mor. And, my understanding of this is, yes, we need an acceptance of normal hair, but then I see communities where where there's young girls who have a hormonal issue and an unusual amount of hair, and they are not allowed to do anything about it, and they're guilt-tripped into, I'm a dentist, and so even people of those community will happily send their children to me to take out some of their teeth because they have crooked teeth, and they want them to have straight teeth. And it's purely a cosmetic thing. They want nice straight teeth, so when they smile, the teeth are straight. It won't make any difference functionally, but they're happy to have some teeth taken out so they can have braces to straighten their teeth so that they have a nice smile. And so in the same way, if somebody has a hormonal issue and from a distance you can see an unusual amount of hair, why is that not seen in the same way? Why is it not dealt with in the same way as you would if it was a medical issue? So I think there's real barriers for women, and that's extreme cases, but even within normal society, we are not used to seeing hair anymore.
See, I think where we're at is we're at an interesting point within our tradition where now is the time to start having some difficult conversations. And there are people who are not willing to have these conversations, say, nope, this is the way it's always been done for hundreds of years. We're just going to stick with it. There's no room for movement. And then there are others who will say, actually, that's not the way the world is moving. Let's start having these awkward conversations. Maybe hair is not so important as it was a couple of hundred years ago. I don't know what the answer is to that. There isn't this fixed thing. What I know is that if we don't have these conversations, if we don't come up with new variations, very quickly you're going to start losing people because these barriers become more and more as time moves on against these things. So these are difficult conversations. They're not simple black and white answers that says, yes, you can, no, you can't. There is room for interpretation. There's room for trying to negotiate whether we can actually adopt and change some of these things. There's some very big questions that we can even ask that says, what is the use of a turban these days? Maybe that's how people dressed hundreds of years ago. Why are you doing that now? In the same way, the Buddhist monks can say, well, why do we still shave our heads and wear these robes? There will be traditional ones that says, this is how it's always been done, we're happy with it. There'll be others that say, can I be a Buddhist without all of those things? So there's always room for us to kind of have these conversations. I don't know where these conversations can happen. I don't know if there's some authority that needs to give a stamp of approval that says, we've had a conversation, this is the conclusion we've come to. I don't feel we're there yet. And so in that time, you're going to have these kind of awkward, well, that's what the tradition says, but we kind of believe this, and we bend the rules slightly this way or that way. That's always going to be the case. So probably one of the most vague answers you're going to get out of the entire session today, but it's the reality of where we're at. Sometimes things aren't as black and white, and sometimes there are just very clear answers.